What's up guys, Ergor here again with the latest blog post from Last Epoch's Hype Week for Season 2 Tombs of the Erased. This blog was focused around the new crafting systems being added in the new season, as well as various balance changes to the endgame, including changes to the boss ward system and a rebalancing of the power of ward and health for players. There were also a number of changes to uniques that were shown off and some new uniques as well. Let's start with the exciting stuff, the new crafting systems. There are 6 new crafting systems in total being added in Tomb of the Erased. These are the Forge of Shattering, the Woven Enchanter, the Relic of the Observer, the Thaumaturgy Device, the Sacrificial Altar, and the Transmute Gem. There are also 3 new runes being added to the existing crafting system, which I'll be going over later. The Forge of Shattering will be unlocked at some point in the campaign, and it is focused around set items. You will be able to put any set items into the Forge of Shattering to shatter them into shards. These shards will be used to add the unique 2-stat affix of the original set item to an item of the same slot and allowing the new item to count towards the set bonuses for the set that the original belonged to. These 2-stat set affixes can be crafted up to tier 5, but there are methods to get them to tier 6 or 7, including one of the new runes being added. This is a really smart fix to a common problem within the ARPG genre. That being set items either being so powerful that you always feel like you need to wear them, which makes builds feel homogeneous like in Diablo 3, or so weak that you never really get to interface with the system in the first place, like how Last Epoch is currently. This Forge of Shattering system will allow the devs to buff up set bonuses and make them interesting and powerful enough to want to use without worrying about eliminating all other gear pieces from being considered, as you'll be able to simply craft the set bonuses onto whatever piece of gear you want to. I'm really impressed with this system, and I look forward to trying it out, as well as seeing how they advance the set bonuses in the game going forward. The Woven Enchanter can be found at the end of every tomb or cemetery of the Erased, as well as at the end of Woven Echoes. This provides the idle enchanting system, which was gone over in the first blog post from a few days ago, and I went into detail on it in my video covering that blog, so you can get more information there, but to give a brief explainer, the idle enchanting system allows you to craft a random affix from the pool of new enchanted affixes onto a class idol, as well as adding Weaver's Touch onto the idol, which functions the same as Weaver's Will currently does. One thing I did get wrong in the previous video, however, is that tombs will have 1 use of the enchanter, cemeteries will have 2 uses, which I originally said could have up to 4, and Woven Echoes will have anywhere from 2 to 4 uses. The Relic of the Observer will allow you to replace an unsealed attribute affix on an item with an affix at the same tier and roll within the range of the tier of a different attribute. The attributes included in this system are Strength, Dexterity, Intelligence, and Attunement. Vitality and plus to all attributes will be excluded. This is another neat addition to the game that will make gearing feel a good bit less restrictive, especially in the early game when attributes are harder to come by in the first place. I definitely foresee this being used a lot, and hopefully it will be available fairly early in the campaign, as it will be very useful for leveling in addition to endgame progression. As you kill exiled rune mages throughout the game, eventually you will draw the attention of the rune wardens, who will then attack you. Once you defeat them, you will gain access to the Thaumaturgy Device. The Thaumaturgy Device will allow you to replace a prefix of any glove, belt, or boot item that has 2 prefixes on it with an experimental affix. The chance for getting a higher tier on that experimental affix increases proportional to the tiers of the 2 prefixes on the original item. For example, 2 tier 1 prefixes give you the lowest chance for high rolls, and 2 tier 7 prefixes give you the highest chance. This system will add more sources of experimental rolls on your gear so that you can ideally get the particular affix you're seeking sooner than in the past, without being entirely reliant on the RNG of not only a rune prison spawning, but also of an item dropping of the right slot, and then finally having the specific affix you want. Reduction in RNG can be a bad thing in ARPGs, as that is essentially the whole point of the genre, but I think this is a good light touch to make what is a bit of an annoying grind into a slightly less annoying grind. The Sacrificial Altar can be found at the end of a specific type of Woven Echo called the Gauntlet of Strife, which is a sort of boss rush encounter where you fight multiple bosses back to back. The altar will be used to sacrifice a unique or legendary or Weaver's Will item that you have at least 2 copies of. You will sacrifice one of the copies in order to reroll the range of the affixes on the copy that you'll keep. The potential of the sacrificed copy has to at least match the potential of the copy you're keeping. For example, if the copy you're re-rolling has 2 legendary potential, then the sacrificed copy must have at least 2 legendary potential or 2 legendary affixes, or vice versa. This also applies the same for Weaver's Will. If you're rerolling an item that already has legendary affixes on it, it will only reroll the range of the affix, not the stat itself or the tier. The Sacrificial Altar seems like a rather powerful system. Similarly to the Thaumaturgy device, it's a reduction in RNG without completely negating the grind required to get the affixes you're seeking. This system will be most effective for uniques that can be target farmed, such as those from timeline bosses, given that you need multiple copies of the same item. I think the idea of being able to channel multiple poor drops of the same item into additional RNG attempts is a great addition to the game. And last but not least, for the new crafting systems, we have the Transmuting Gem, which will allow you to reroll the legendary potential on uniques with a chance to remove all legendary potential from the item. If you are unlucky enough to remove the legendary potential, you'll be given an equivalent amount of rare shards as compensation. There will be 3 new runes added in the new season: Rune of Weaving, Rune of Havoc, and Rune of Redemption. The Rune of Weaving can be used on any item with Weaver's Will or Weaver's Touch to expend some of the will or touch on the item as if a certain amount of enemies were killed, and puts either a new random affix or upgrades a random affix in the same manner that the system normally works. The Rune of Havoc will randomly shuffle the tiers of all unsealed affixes on an item. It does not reroll the range tiers. The Rune of Redemption will reroll the non-sealed exalted affixes on an exalted item, retaining the tier and the roll within the tier, but changing the stats to random other stats that the item could only roll. Now with all of that out of the way, let's move on to the endgame balancing changes that are coming in Season 2. First off, we have the changes coming to the boss word mechanic that was introduced in Season 1. For those who are unfamiliar with the game, the way this mechanic works is mitigate bosses just being insta-killed by really powerful builds. At certain health thresholds, which I believe is every 33%, but I could be wrong on that, the boss gains a large amount of quickly decaying ward on their health. This, however, was applied to all bosses in the game, including mini-bosses, and slowed down the pace of killing bosses a bit more than I think the devs originally intended, evidenced by the fact that they are nerfing it a bit now. For one thing, they are taking it off of all mini-bosses, which is a very good change in my opinion, especially because this means it will no longer be on exiled mages or nemesis, which was always really annoying because these are encounters that you come across randomly within echoes and maps in the campaign and could really slow down your map clearing speed to an annoying degree. They are also making it so that the ward that is applied to bosses at the health thresholds will decay much faster now, so you'll be able to get through them even quicker. As stated at the top of the video, there are also some balance changes coming to player defenses, specifically the direct balance between ward-based builds and health-based builds. The main issue they focused on was the relative ease at which mages and acolytes can get a lot of ward without really needing to sacrifice much in the way of damage, due to the intelligence stat being their main damage scaling stat and also providing ward retention is one of the strongest aspects of ward for keeping high amounts on your character. To address this, the devs have cut the amount of ward retention you get per intelligence in half, from 4% to 2%. This may sound like a massive nerf, however, due to the way the ward decay formula scales, this isn't actually a 50% nerf to the stat. They are also buffing the ward decay stat itself to make it a more desirable stat, and they are adding new sources of ward per second and ward decay threshold to rings and amulets. On the other side of things, health has been behind ward and power for a while, making the builds that leverage it as their main source of defense fall behind a bit as well. The devs are going to be buffing the health regeneration stat substantially, firstly by making the added health regeneration stat less scarce, and buffing the increased health regeneration stat by about 15%. The added health affix is also being buffed for tier 4 and higher, and there are new hybrid health regeneration and added health affixes being added to rings and relics. Increased health regen affix can now also be found on helmets, body armor, belts, rings, and relics, but can no longer be found on gloves. Health potions are also being buffed to restore more health, from 50 plus 5 per level to 50 plus 10 per level. Beyond these defensive balance changes, there are also a number of offensive changes coming to a number of skills too, namely the reduction of outliers in power such as mana stacking static orb, sacrifice with high minion counts, and falcon builds across the board, but especially dive bomb. There will also be buffs to underperforming skills, which there are too many to list here, but I will link the blog post below so you can find it for yourself if you so choose. There will also be even more balance changes shown in the upcoming patch notes on the 11th. Finally, the blog post went over some changes coming to a handful of unique items, as well as a couple new uniques coming to the game too. There were also a few new uniques shown off in the previous blog post, as well as some teased in the trailer for Season 2, which I will be compiling together and making a video about in the next few days, so keep an eye out for that. Some of them look pretty interesting. Well, that's all we've got for today's blog post on the endgame crafting and balance changes. This one was another interesting info dump from 11th Hour Games, and I'm looking forward to getting my hands on the new crafting systems, especially the Forge of Shattering and the Woven Enchanter in particular. So far, these blog posts the last few days are making the new season look pretty promising, and I'm looking forward to getting my hands on it. Let me know what you guys think about today's blog in the comments, and be sure to like and subscribe so you can get notified when my future videos about Last Epoch and anything ARPG go live. Tomorrow's blog post about the quality of life changes coming in Season 2 will be the last one for the Hype Week, and then we have the full patch notes coming on the 11th, so look forward to both of those. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.